welcome to Franchise Revolution. We're a podcast dedicated to the franchising industry. We provide real-world insight into what goes into buying a franchise, how to grow your existing franchise, all the way through to selling your franchise. My name is Jason Revere. I'll be your host today. I'm CEO and president of Revolution Franchise Brokers. We're a national search firm with the mission of helping people to declare their independence by finding financial and lifestyle freedom through franchise ownership. And so welcome to the show today. We're coming off of a pretty big deal last night. I don't know if you guys all were paying attention, but there was a pretty monumentous event that was broadcast on television, and that was, drum roll please, the Golden Bachelor wedding. The Golden Bachelor wedding. Gary Turner, Teresa Niss, they tied the knot last night after their whirlwind romance, and they said their vows. They actually wrote their vows. They said their vows, and they tied the knot, and hopefully they'll live happily ever after. And I don't want to be a spoiler here, so spoiler alert for y'all. It was adorable. I mean, come on, who doesn't like to see two people in love getting married? Right, surrounded by all of their the exes of the other contestants, I guess I should call them. We're all there in attendance, and they were hell. One of them participated. One of them was the officiant. One of the top ones was the officiant. That's not something you see every day, and so these people must be really well evolved. Because I don't know about you, but I don't want. When I got married, I didn't really want to see my wife's ex-boyfriend standing there and helping us to recite our vows, right? Telling me I'm allowed to kiss my bride now. That seems kind of strange, but you know what? They made it work. So anyway, but what the heck am I talking about, right? How does this relate to the franchise buying process or business in general or anything, right? Well, it really doesn't. So I'm gonna go out on a stretch here. It's all about persistence, right? Persistence, and this has nothing to do with Gary and Teresa persisting and finding love. No. This is my persistence and my family's persistence, because we sat together and watched the first handful of episodes of this series here. And as painful as it was to get through, we made a decision to get all the way through this thing. So we were going to push, we were going to persist, and we were going to see it all the way to the end. And we did last night. So that is the kind of persistence that you're going to have to show sometimes when you're a business owner. All right? How about that for a stretch? You like that? But all kidding aside, we're gonna today focus on why you should buy a franchise. We're going to continue our series on why you should buy a franchise, and I'm going to pick up kind of where I left off on the last episode, where we were talking about, are you cut out to be a business owner? Right? Those were some of the things you had to do, right? You got to define what you're trying to accomplish. Number one, before you even start to look for a franchise, you got to figure out how much you can invest comfortably to leave a good cushion for you and your family to live on, because that's one of the things that when you start a business, you're going to take a financial haircut. It is what it is. Nobody starts a business out and they're all of a sudden overnight successes. That doesn't happen. You got to be willing to invest some money, but leave enough over to last you for a good amount of time. I said at least 3 to 6 months, but hell, I mean, come on. The more the merrier, right? Just in case, so the F word doesn't creep in, fear. So that was number 2 that you had to do. And then number 3, we talked about, are you cut out to be a business owner in the first place, right? And I talked about I gave a long-winded example of Texas Hold'em and how the cards you bring to the table are going to be your cards that have to add up to their cards to have a really strong hand, right? So if you want a 30-minute explanation of what that analogy is, go listen to the old podcast, the previous one. But today we're going to pick it up where we left off. Are you cut out to be a business owner in the first place? And there are some essential traits that every business owner must have. Okay, these are traits, not skills. All right, so I want to make that very clear. There are certain traits that every single business owner must have innately in order to be a successful entrepreneur or frantrepreneur, as they say in our industry, franchise owner versus entrepreneur. It doesn't matter what you're doing. If you're striking out on your own, you must have these essential traits within you in order to even be considered as a candidate to be a business owner in the first place. And when I see people fail in business, they say a lot of times that it's undercapitalization, and that's, obviously true. Duh, money helps the business ownership process as much as anything does. Yes, I understand all of that. But from a real inward standpoint, if you don't have the traits to be a business owner in the first place, that is likely going to set you up for major failure. And so we're going to focus here on that for the next handful of episodes. Actually, we're going to be going through kind of dissecting each one of these essential traits. And there's anywhere from 5 to 10 of them that you can find on the internet. Okay, and we're gonna focus on our core group that we've identified here. Before we get too much into the weeds on any of them, we're going to get into one at a time. That way it's bite-sized. You don't have to worry about forgetting anything. So today we're going to focus on just one, and that's going to be responsible. That is trait number 1, responsible. So write that down if you're taking notes. Are you responsible? Do you take, and it's not like, do you not leave your shoes sitting on the dining room table like my 12-year-old daughter does? That's irresponsible, yes, but I'm talking about, do you take responsibility for every outcome in your life? That's the kind of responsible that we're talking about here. Do you accept the responsibility of your outcomes? When you have something bad happen to you, are you a blamer? Or do you say that's on me, right? If you show up late to work, and do you blame traffic, or do you say it was because I didn't get up early enough and leave the house early enough, so it's my fault I was late? That's the kind of traits that we're talking about here as far as responsibility is concerned. And so, before I get too much into this, let's slow it down and wrap up a little bit of an analogy here, so you guys can fully grasp this idea here. So for Christmas this year, my lovely wife, she got me a bass guitar. Okay, it's a beautiful Sterling Music Man Stingray bass guitar, dual humbucker. It's pearl white. It's gorgeous. It's got the big fleur-de-lis tuning keys on it. It is just a beautiful instrument. Okay, but I haven't played this instrument in many years, the bass guitar, and so I pick it up, right, and I'm like, oh man, what a gorgeous thing. This is unbelievable. I was flabbergasted, absolutely surprised. Right? And so you sit down and you start playing it and you go, wow, yikes, I suck. Right? This is terrible. And then I don't even remember the basics of this instrument. It's been too long. I've forgotten everything I once knew. I wasn't great to begin with, but I'm forgetting things that I used to know that were second nature, that was very easy to do, and now it's becoming a major challenge. And so I'm having to start from ground zero. I'm starting from scratch on this instrument, and I'm plucking away at it, and making all these noises, and then playing the wrong notes here and there, and I can't even remember scales. It's just a disaster, right? Is that the bass guitar's fault? Right? Did Music Man screw up and send me the wrong instrument? How dare they? Right? No, that's on me. It's because I didn't practice. I don't know how to do anything anymore because I didn't practice. It has nothing to do with that bass guitar. Okay? Now that seems very obvious. Right? That's an obvious analogy. Give you another one. Driving my truck. I had an F-150. It's King Ranch, beautiful, loved it. And I was making this just god-awful noise, right? Making this god-awful noise. And I take it in to get it fixed. And it's going to be very expensive to get the thing fixed. So what do? I trade it in. Hopefully I can trade it in without, anybody noticing. Thankfully they didn't. Whether or not they did, I have no idea. But they gave me a pretty fair trade-in, got a new truck, right? Is it Ford Motor Company's fault that thing broke? Maybe. If you read the reviews online about their EcoBoost engines, they've got a whole bunch of problems with the turbos and all the other crap that goes into those things. Yeah, you know what? But what would have happened had I called up Ford Motor Company and complained about the engine that they have in my vehicle, saying, I got 143,000 miles on this car. How dare you, and making this inferior product? You think that call would have gone anywhere? No. You just got to take responsibility for it, cut your losses, and say, you know what? I'm gonna take my bruises here. I'm gonna take this car. I'm gonna trade it in, even though I'm trading it in. I love the truck. I'm gonna get less money out of it than I put into it in the first place, right? But you just gotta eat it because it is what it is. It's the responsibility that you need to take as a person, as a human being, that when bad things happen to you, it's nobody's fault but your own, right? If it is to be, it's up to me, that old cliche saying. If it is to be, it's up to me. That's the kind of responsibility you need to have as a business owner. And when people get into business, this happens all the dang time. People get into business and they look at franchising because they're trying to make up for deficiencies in their traits. You can make up for deficiencies in your skill set in a franchise. You cannot make up for deficiencies in your traits. When things get hard, which they will, owning a franchise, that franchisor, it's not their responsibility to swoop in and fix everything for your business. You must take the utmost responsibility for that business, not blame anybody. It's on you. You're the driver of this thing. You know, if you take that same vehicle that I had, right? I was talking about the broken vehicle. If I'd have driven it and ran it into a wall, is that Ford's problem? Did they build a crappy car? Only if their brakes didn't work and it was their fault that they didn't put it together. In that case, you know what? I'm dead, and they got a class action lawsuit saying that they're going to be held responsible to it. So we're both taking responsibility in that scenario. But it has nothing to do with me. With Ford, if I drive that vehicle into a wall and I just am not paying attention, that's on me. Right? If you own a franchise, let's say you've got like a painting franchise, right? You own a home improvement franchise. It's in the painting field, whatever. You're operating this business, and you get leads coming in. Okay, and what if the leads suck? Okay, I don't know, but you don't call them, and you just stop calling the leads because you just assume they're gonna suck. Whose fault is that? Is it the franchisor's fault? Did they have a faulty system, or are you driving it improperly? Right? That's the kind of responsibility that you need to take. You've got to get into your business knowing, no matter what, if it's a franchise, if I'm starting this business from scratch, it doesn't matter. No matter what happens, if you make that decision to get into that in the first place, just like we did with The Bachelor, if you made that decision, you got to watch that first episode, you're going to make that decision and sign that franchise agreement. No matter what happens, if it turns out to be a dumpster fire of a franchisor and they don't have the resources that you need to be, quote unquote, need to be successful, what are you going to do? You're just going to give up? Because you signed the agreement. You had time to do your due diligence. It's going to be on you to make it work. Now, by the way, do your due diligence. That's where the responsibility lays in, because there are some crappy franchises out there. There are some great franchises out there, but those great franchises, back to the original point, are not going to make up for your ability or inability to take responsibility for your success. And I talk to franchisees all the time who are like, not all the time, but occasionally they're like, hey, I need to sell. I hate the word I need to sell. When I hear I need to sell my business, I know that there's systemic problems in there. Okay. And when that happens and you start peeling back the onion a bit, there was one, I'll share a little anecdote with you. It was an insulation franchise. Okay. An insulation franchise. And they were going out of business and they needed to sell their business because they were out of money. They were out of capital. Right? Is that an undercapitalization problem? Potentially. But you know what? They borrowed like $300,000 or something ridiculous to start this business. Okay. It shouldn't take more than 170 to start that business, but they needed a much longer runway. And why did they need the much longer runway? Do you think it's because the franchisor was terrible? No, because that franchisor has multi-million-dollar producers all over the place in it. Was it the economy? No, it's the same economy everybody's dealing with. Was it the location? No, I know the location. It's a good location. So what was it? Well, when you start really peeling back the onion, as I said, you start looking at some of the things that they were doing, or rather not doing. So they had a salesperson, right, quote unquote, salesperson on their staff. And they abdicated the sales role. They didn't delegate it. They abdicated it. So they just let this person run the most important part of a company, the sales department. It was just some dude who had no vested interest in this, had never earned more than 50 grand a year prior to joining their organization. You want to give somebody the keys to a potential multi-million-dollar business and say, here you go, and they don't know how to do anything? That's like giving the keys to a Maserati to somebody who doesn't know how to drive stick. It just doesn't make any sense. What are you doing? He's not going to make it go anywhere. That's embarrassing. And so when you look at that, you're like, golly, man, no wonder you guys are struggling. This guy's not closing anything. I said, what's he doing right now? They said, I don't know. I said, that's a problem, isn't it? It's the middle of the day. You don't know what the most important person in your company is doing right now? That's embarrassing. And so what did we do? We picked up the phone, called the guy. Hey, man, what's going on? I'm at home. I see on the calendar here you're supposed to be at someone else's home trying to sell them insulation. Oh, yeah, but I had something come up. That's what happens when you don't pay attention. The old adage, right, they're going to respect what you inspect. If you don't inspect anything, you're going to lose all respect in that company. That's the kind of responsibility that you need to take. And it's not difficult. It's not hard. It's simple, really. But if you don't have that drive within you to be responsible, to take ownership of everything, every outcome in your life, you're not going to likely make a great business owner. And you should probably stop the process until you build up that trait that you have. Is it fixable? Sure, it is. That's one of the fixable ones, is the responsibility. You just have to rewire the way that you think. You know, and a lot of employees do that. Golly, go to the break room, right? I mean, you go to the break room. If you really want to see the mopes out there, just go to the break room of every office in here. Even the successful, quote unquote, successful ones, the ones that are been there the longest, right? They're the ones that are going to show you the ropes. They blame everybody for everything. All they do is complain about everything, and that's seems to be a pretty prevailing way of getting through life. Is you just complain about everything, blame everybody else for all your problems, all your outcomes. Right? If you're struggling financially, it's the economy's fault. If you get rear-ended, it's the other guy's fault. What a jerk, right? Yeah, well, you know what? Maybe had you not stopped so quickly. You got to pay attention to that stuff. And if you're gonna hand over responsibility of your success to somebody else, then you're in complete lack of control of your entire life and your entire future. So that can't be fun. And especially if you're a business owner, if you have aspirations of being a business owner, you're just going to hand over your success to the franchisor? I mean, come on, grow up. Anyway, I know that I'm rambling here a little bit about this idea here, but responsible versus blamer. How do you know? How do you know if you got that? Well, that's a gut check. That's just something that you're going to have to be able to identify with yourself. We've developed some tests and exams or whatever, assessments, I guess we call them, that can help you to identify some of those traits within you in your answer to some questions, strongly agree, blah, 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 blah. But it's not going to be the end-all, be-all, right? There's no assessment that's going to be able to tell you clear cut, yes, no, I am a person who takes full responsibility for things. You have to know these things about yourself. Okay, you gotta think about all of the things in your life and all of the times, because you spend more time with you than anybody else does, right? So just look at yourself. Do I take responsibility for every single thing that in my life? And by the way, I don't. And this doesn't have to be every single thing, by the way. Sometimes you get a little moody and you start blaming stuff. But as long as you can rein yourself back in and realize that, oh, shoot, it's probably me, right? You get in a fight with your wife or your husband or whatever. And you're like, oh, man, what a jerk. She or he is just whatever. They're ruining stuff. Oh, man, maybe it's me. You know what? It probably is. As long as you can have that kind of a mentality and attitude, you'll get through it, and you'll be able to you'll be able to be a good business owner, because you at least have the ability to self-reflect and to realize that, oh yeah, you know what? It is on me, because everything that happens to you, good, bad, or indifferent, is on you. I know there's extenuating circumstances. I get it. But we can't think like that. Because if we start thinking like that, then we start blaming and we start handing over our outcomes to outside sources over which we have no control. That's not a fun way to be, is it? I don't think so. And it's also not a way to enter the world of being a business owner successfully. So that's one of the traits, the responsibility. I'm going to wind it down here, and we're going to adjourn this podcast here. But I'm going to pose you with that thought. And I want you to be thinking about that. If you're seriously considering becoming a business owner, seriously considering becoming a franchise owner, that is a good place to start. Is to think about, do you have what it takes to be a business owner? And specifically, do you take responsibility for everything? If you want to have take that assessment that we talked about before, go to our website, revfran.com, REVFRAN.com. Go to the resources section and find the Entrepreneurial Traits Assessment. It's going to assess you on all of the entrepreneurial traits, whether or not you're a risk taker, a visionary. I'm not going to spoil all of them, but it's going to assess all of those different traits and help you to really see if you've got really what it takes to become a successful franchise owner. And we talked about before, right? Those are the traits, the essential traits. There's also skills that a good business owner, franchise owner must have in order to be successful in that. So there's skills, and then there's traits. The skills can be made up for if you have a deficiency in a certain area by the franchisor. Again, we're going to talk about those in later episodes today. So hopefully you got something out of today's episode. And whether or not you did, as I said before, liked it, didn't like it, hated it, loved it, whatever, go ahead and subscribe. It'll alert you every time a new podcast comes out. And then if you hated it, you can give it a thumbs down. And every time a new one comes out, you can complain about it, post it online, talk about how terrible I am. Or if you loved it, do the opposite, right? Tell everybody how great I am and how great this podcast is and how much you learned. All right, guys, that is going to do it for Franchise Revolution. Have a great day. Watch The Bachelor Wedding. Be excellent. We'll catch you on the next episode.